Let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today before we go over to our live questions. Not a lot of great comedies this year, it's true. But I thought the new Melissa McCarthy one, Superintelligence, has looked pretty good. Just saw they pulled it from release and instead are going to launch it on HBO Max instead. I know they did something similar with that terrible Cloverfield movie. Do you think this is a bad sign? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Julie. And yes, for those of you who may not have missed it, Melissa McCarthy. I like Melissa McCarthy. Not usually a fan when her husband directs her movie, because I think Melissa McCarthy's worst movies are the ones her husband directs, but whatever. I'm not here to talk about her husband. Melissa McCarthy's had this movie coming out, Superintelligence, that on its surface looks a little bit like Jexy in a way. But anyway, and this was going to be, I believe, a December release date. Well, it's been pulled. It is no longer getting a theatrical release. This is the story that came to us from Deadline. They write the following. Superintelligence has exited its December 20th theatrical release date to instead become the first Warner Brothers Picture Group film to premiere on HBO Max. This comes before an HBO Max presentation on October 29th, where it is expected that other projects might become part of the streamer's launch slate that will now have Superintelligence, the Steven Soderbergh-directed Meryl Streep star Let Them All Talk, the Greg Berlanti produced YA novel adaptation Unpregnant, and Bad Education, the Hugh Jackman and Allison Janney starrer. That's a nice little sounding lineup of movies, as a matter of fact. All right. So the question here is this really bad news for something like Superintelligence? Is this a bad sign? Because the last time, if I remember correctly, the last time that we were this close to a movie hitting its theatrical release date and then gets pulled and got shuffled off to some streaming service was the absolutely steaming pile of garbage Cloverfield Paradox movie. Is that what it was called? Paradox? I hated it so much, I don't even remember the name. It was terrible, though. Absolutely terrible. So, this situation with Superintelligence feels very similar to that, right? We're just a couple of months away from the movie supposing to hit theaters, and all of a sudden now it's been pulled off its release date and it's getting shuffled off to a streamer. Must mean it's terrible. Well, maybe not. Because you see, there is a significant difference here. There's a significant detail here that differentiates Superintelligence's situation with the situation of Cloverfield Paradox. And that difference in situation is this, is that it's Warner Brothers moving it to another Warner Brothers platform. With Cloverfield Paradox, it was what we all know now was Paramount had this movie. We realized this movie's terrible. And we don't think it's going to get a lot of people out to the theater. And I don't see how we're going to make money on it with a theatrical run. Let's just shuffle it off to this other, let's just shuffle it off to Netflix. And they sold it to Netflix. With this situation with Superintelligence, there's the significant difference is this is Warner Brothers going, we have our own streaming service coming. That's ours. HBO Max. I'm not sitting here saying that Superintelligence is going to be great. I'm not. I've had my doubts about this movie the whole time. But if you look at the context and the circumstances here surrounding Superintelligence being moved out of theaters over to HBO Max, you could reasonably make the argument that, you know what? Warner Brothers might have a lot of belief in this movie, and they might believe in it so much that they feel it would be a big boost to their brand new streaming service in HBO Max. Now, that wasn't the situation with Cloverfield and Netflix. Paramount doesn't own Netflix. It's not like Paramount went, you know what? We love this Cloverfield movie so much, let's put it on our streaming service to give our streaming service a boost. No, they just dumped it off to Netflix. It wasn't even intercompany. They just dumped it off. You can make an argument that that's not what's happening here. That because Warner Brothers owns HBO Max, they're under the same umbrella, that yes, there's still an argument to be made that, they don't think this thing's going to do well in theater, dump it to a streaming service. Yes, but you can also reasonably make the argument, hey, maybe they believe in it so much they want this to be the flagship thing they launch their new service with. Now look, I don't know which way that's actually going to go. I don't know if they believe in this film. I don't know if this film is the greatest movie of the year. I don't know if it's the worst piece of garbage we're going to get this year. I have no idea. But right now, I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that it must be a bad sign because of that one significant detail difference between the Cloverfield situation and this one. They're actually taking it and putting it on their own service. That could be a positive thing. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it might be. Question is, what do you guys think about that? Do you fall into the camp that you think, nah, this superintelligence looks bad, Warner Brothers just knew it wasn't going to do in the theaters, and they're shuffling it off to their streaming service? Or do you take the more positive approach? Hey, they must like this movie so much that they want to really lead off their new streaming service with it. How do you guys interpret it right now? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all